Good evening, everyone. Welcome back to my channel, True Crime with Jess Rose. I'm here every Tuesday and Thursday at 8 p.m. I'm on TikTok. I'm on the TikTok if you want to have a look over there, or if you want to join my Patreon, it's patreon.com/JessRose5472. It is my last video of 2024. So, yeah. Oh, God. I have mentioned already, it is a child. So, just don't say I didn't warn you. And yeah, as the title said, it's not again, which is exactly what I thought when I started. Oh, when I started looking into this one, the harrowing Sara Shariff story. Okay. So, lot of information on this. Lot of information on this story. So I'm going to try and do it as much in order as I can. There will be a bit of back and forth in, so if I need to recap, I will throughout the story. Okay, so we have Sara Shariff. Right, what we're going to do, we're not actually going to start with Sara at the minute. Okay, we're going to start right back from the beginning, and we're going to start with Irfan. Okay, now Irfan Sharif was born in 1982 in Jhelum, Pakistan. Now I don't know if I'm pronouncing that right. I believe it's Jhelum. I don't think it's Jhelum. I think it's Jhelum. But feel free to correct me. Now, in 2001, when Irfan was about 19, okay, he came to the UK on a student visa. Apparently his family in Pakistan were very happy, you know, that he was coming over here for, you know, to continue his studies. And, you know, just, I suppose it was seen, you know, that financially it would be better here as well. So, yeah, like I say, he moved here in 2001. Now, although he'd come to the UK on a student visa, and I do believe maybe that was the initial reason for moving here, his studies soon became like the furthest thing from his mind. And he began working very quickly after arriving. And what he'd do is send the money that he would earn. He became a taxi driver, and he'd send the money he'd earned back to his family in Pakistan. Now, it said, I've seen a lot on this story, an awful lot from so many different sources. So some things I'll say, some things I won't if I don't feel they're relevant, let's say, or needed for the story, okay? But I had heard that he'd been attempting to marry various women in the UK, so he could remain in England. Now, he'd settled in Woking in Surrey, and he had a few relationships with, like I say, various women. I'd even heard somewhere that he was looking into the pay to stay thing, where you pay to get married and it benefits both of you in some way. So do I know much about that with regards to Irfan, or in general? No, I don't. Okay, I'm just saying these were the rumours that I've read about Irfan. Okay, so we get to 2009. All right, now at this point Irfan is aged 27. All right, so he's been earning money as a taxi driver. He's been having relationships while he's been here. But then he meets a lady by the name of Olga Domin. Okay. Now, Olga has a child herself already from a previous relationship. Okay. It said that it suspected learning difficulties that she had Now, I haven't heard that confirmed, but it does say suspected learning difficulties in there. I haven't just come up with that. It is written down that's, so I don't know that for sure, so I'll keep saying suspected, okay? Now, Irfan and Olga met online, okay? Now, Olga had moved to the UK from Poland, all right, seeking work and a better life. Very similar story to Irfan's, to be honest. Just, yeah, wanting a better life, but Olga had real trouble settling in the UK. She didn't make many friends here at all. Obviously, language barrier, and she's struggling with this new life here. Like I say, she's got a son with her as well. Now, the son I'm referring to, which is from a previous relationship, in the documents, his name is Zed, okay? So I'm going to refer to him a couple of times at the beginning of this story, but by the initial Z, okay? So, now, seeing how vulnerable Olga was, which is what I've heard about that quite a few times, is vulnerable, Irfan saw the relationship between them as an excellent opportunity to seek permanent residency in the UK. He actually put this to her. He told her he'd provide, he'd protect her, and marriage would be the best decision for them. Okay, so this is what was put to Olga, and the couple were married within a couple of months of meeting. Okay, so they married really, really early. So now we get to 2010, all right? Now, the couple welcome a little baby boy. Now, remember I said she's already got a son, who we will be referring to as Zed. This baby boy, born in 2010, this baby boy is belonging to Olga and Irfan, okay? He will be referred to as you, all right? I'll keep reminding you in case you're like, who's that? So, but that's just to let you know, we can't obviously say their names outright. So they're the initials I'm going to be using for them, all right? So, things have started to go downhill quite soon after little you was born, all right? See, Irfan's mask, it had slipped. It had slipped from this provider and protector of Olga, okay? And he'd become quite violent. He was actually accused of domestic violence and coercive control. The coercive control was he controlled all the money coming into the home. She had no bank cards, they were taken off her. He didn't want her speaking to anybody, including her own family. So this is where the coercive control comes into play, all right? And like I say, not only that, the violence escalated really quite quickly between the couple, okay? Now, Irfan had also began to gamble at this point. Now, I say began to gamble, I don't know, was he always a gambler? I don't know. I just know that it was this point that the gambling gets brought up, all right? Now, he's gambling heavily, so he's spending the money that the family desperately needed at this point. Now, also, because of this, and having her son and having the new son, this put extra stress, let's say, on Irfan, because he's earning the money, but he's spending it as quick as he's earning it. So that ramped up the violence as well, okay? Just due to the stress of them constantly being broke, because this man is, like I say, he's spending it as quick as he's earning it, all right? The family home, it really becomes toxic. Really quickly, as you've seen the date, 2009, it's only 2010. It's all switched very, very quickly. So between May 2010 and August 2012, okay, the police were called 4 times. All right. And because of this, it alerted Surrey County Council Child Services. All right. So they were involved with the young family from 2010 because of the police, because of the violence, because there's two young children involved. So child services are involved right from 2010. Okay. Please remember that date. All right. So the concerns were not only due to the violence in the home, but obviously that was the majority of their concerns, but it's also to the home because the home was filthy. Okay. The kids were dirty, the house was dirty, the kids were looking neglected. Now, it was said that the kids were also suffering from emotional abuse because of constantly seeing this violence in the home. These two little kids, I believe that Zeddy's a boy. So these two little boys are, they're really struggling at this moment. Now, in 2012, one of the kids, Zed, okay, so Olga's son, he was actually hurt in one of these physical altercations. Now, it says physical altercation. And I noticed that wording a lot. Now, all I've heard is that Irfan was violent, but they're called physical altercation. Physical altercation to me means a mutual. And I'm not getting the inkling that it was a mutual violence going on. But it's hard to know. It's hard to know, okay? Now, the same child that was hurt in one of these altercations was also found walking around a shop when he was 3 years old, on his own. Just an empty shop on his own. Then a year later, when he's 4, he's seen walking around the town centre. Now, this is child Z, okay? This is Z, and he's Olga's child, remember, okay? So now we get to December 2012, all right? There's a care order brought in as not only did the children witness violence between Irfan and Olga, they were also being physically abused, both boys. He wasn't happy just laying in to his new wife. No. He's got to lay in. To these little, like, you would have been 2. The other little fella would have been under 5, and he's laying into the 2 boys as well. So we get to the 11th of January 2013, all right? And little, okay, Sara Shariff is born, okay? Beautiful little girl. Absolutely adorable. Genuinely beautiful little girl. Quite small, but she's beautiful. Okay, on the 17th of January 2013, when she was 6 days old, there was a hearing for care proceedings that are concluded, all right? And this is what was said. The advantages of the children remaining at home should be weighed against the potential harm to the children of removal, particular to Sarah, as a newborn child. Basically, we're going to leave them. We're going to, do you know what? The harm of taking them away and possibly putting them with people who would adore them. No. Let's leave them in the violence and the filth and the no money. They're poor. When I say poor, he's blowing the money, so he's making them poor. And we're gonna leave the kids there. Let's just see what happens, shall we? May 2013. Okay, Sarah's about 4 months old now. Now, sibling Z, again, remember this is Olga's son from a previous relationship. This isn't Irfan's son, as we know, okay? Well, he's burnt with an iron, okay? And when social services went round to investigate this, not only was this going on, not only are they aware of the violence, abuse to the children, they walk in, they go into kids' bedroom, there's no light bulbs, there's no bedding, it's a hole, absolute hole in there, okay? Do they remove the children? No, of course they don't. Why? Why would they? No, we'll just leave them there. We'll just leave them there, shall we? Let's just see what happens. Get to September 2013. Sara at this point is 8 months old, okay? And the conclusion is that social services agree to leave the kids with Irfan and Olga still. Just leave it. Just leave them there. They'll be fine. They'll be fine. It's okay. But the parents themselves, they signed an agreement to fully engage, all right, with a 10-week parenting course. Okay. And they fully agreed that there'd be no physical chastisement of the kids. Wow, you know. But now that they've agreed it, wow, that's it, isn't it? That I'm not going to touch the kids again. You know, we know that's not going to happen. We know that isn't this kind of channel anyway. But let's say, all right, you know, oh, I don't know what I was going to say then, but let's just say they'd never touch the kids again. They're killing each other. So, okay, there'll be no more physical abuse, but let's just emotionally and mentally destroy these kids a little bit more, shall we? You know, let's just see how that goes. So we get to November 2014. At this point, Sara's nearly 2. All right. This is how long it took for Sara and her siblings to be taken into foster care. All right. And this was after Zed, Olga's oldest son, had made a complaint that Olga had bitten them hard. Not just him, them. He stepped forward. And given his age, I believe he told someone at the school. Social services come in, they remove them. Now, the 2 boys went elsewhere. Sara went to a different foster carer. So they were separated, basically. And while she was in foster care, it was spotted that, obviously, she's in a different placement to her siblings. And it was said that now she's 2, okay? Well, she's not even 2, she's nearly 2. And it said that she'd just go and stand facing a wall. She wouldn't be told to. She'd just go over there. She was very small. Okay, she's not 2 yet, but she was very small for her age. With a very, very tiny appetite. She wouldn't want to eat much. It was a concern to the foster parents, especially when she would just stand and face a wall for no reason. She wasn't told to go there. Okay, but Sara knew. They returned quite soon after to Olga and Irfan. Okay, but Zed, he remains in foster care. He does. Now, Zed would continue to make allegations of abuse committed by both parents of all 3 kids. Zed seemed to be speaking up on behalf of him and his siblings. Irfan and Olga obviously denied all the allegations, and the court couldn't determine what the truth was. So, that'll be it then. Let's just send the younger 2 back, shall we? Let's just do that. That's the best move, I think. That's the best decision. So we get to 2015. All right, around about the time Sara's about 2.5 at this point. Okay, Sara was again taken into foster care. before being returned to Olga. Now, what had happened was there was a massive fight. Sarah's removed, brought into foster care. Olga leaves Irfan and she goes into like a women's refuge. So once she's away from Irfan, the kids are brought back, given back to her, but in a women's refuge. I mean, while they're in foster, were they with a family? Were they with a kind family? And they thought, no, do you know what? It's best. Let's send these kids to a women's refuge. It it's gonna blow your brain. The whole thing's gonna blow your brain as I continue. Okay, so Sarah and you had been viewed, and it looked like they'd been burnt with cigarettes. Looked like they had cigarette burns on them. Okay. Now, Olga and Irfan actually said the scars on these two children weren't from cigarettes. They weren't cigarette burns. They were chickenpox scars. That's what they were. They were chickenpox scars. So, okay, box ticked. Kids are fine. Okay. So social services decided that Sarah and you could live with Olga, okay, and have supervised visits with Irfan, okay. Now these supervised visits were from 2017, okay, and they were at the weekends and during school holidays, okay. That's his supervised access. For the rest of the time, they were living with their mum. All right, that's the situation at that time. Now, Irfan himself in 2014, all right, so it looks like a crossover, or he was cheating on Olga, which I believe that was the source of a lot of their fights, okay. So 2014, he'd met a girl called Bainash Batul, okay, and when him and Olga split up, he then starts a full-blown relationship with Bainash, okay. So we get to March 2019, all right. The Sarah and her brother Yu have been living with Olga now for the past 4 years, having the supervised access with Irfan. Seems like everything's okay. But in March 2019, Sarah and Yu begin to make allegations against Olga. And the allegations were, Sarah says that her mum slapped her, she pulled her hair, she tried to drown her in the bath, okay? Plus she tried to burn her, she was pinching her, okay? Now, it was Irfan who told social services that Sarah was telling him this. Okay? So, this man who, we've, from what you've gathered through everything I've told you, isn't exactly the father. He doesn't seem like he's going to get the Father of the Year award, does he? But he steps forward and he's like, my daughter's telling me her mum's doing this, my son's telling me his mum's doing that. So social services look, and obviously they look at Olga, and then they look at Irfan, who's now with this Banash Batul, and social services considered her and Irfan might be a more secure family unit for Sara and you. Might be best uprooting them after the life they've already had. Let's uproot them from the mum they've been living with for the past 4 years, and let's stick them with their dad, who they've only been having supervised access with. Let's do that, because he met somebody else, and it looks a bit more settled. Now, I don't know. I've been looking. When I continue the story, you'll be like, did Sarah say that about her mum? I don't know. I honestly don't. Now, obviously, her mum's saying that didn't happen and that Irfan had made it up and he'd forced Sarah to say it and, he'd forced you to say it and everything else. I don't know if this behaviour had gone on, but don't forget, Zed had already made these allegations about both his mum and dad earlier on. So it's a bit of a question mark about Olga in that sense. I don't know is what I'm going to say about that, okay? But social services, basically, like I say, considered they be a more secure family unit. So, and plus, Olga, she hadn't wanted Sarah and you to be raised as Muslim. Yeah, raised Muslim, basically. She'd been against that. So, it seems that that's why he wanted his kids as well, okay? So Sarah and you move in with Arthur and Banash, okay? And around this time, Sarah's about 6, okay? So now we're going to come right up to the 9th of August 2023. All right, that's where I'm going to bring you up to now. And there's a phone call made to 999, and it's Irfan, okay, on the phone. And basically, it's just a sickening call. And basically, he's saying, I've killed my daughter. And when they're saying, what did you do? And he's like, I beat her up. I beat her too badly. What? Basically, he tells the police, he says he actually says he's in his son's car. So he lies to the police in this call. But the police go round to the family home, okay? Now, this was in Woking in Surrey, all right? And a lot of this information, obviously, is online. And there's a video that's online. And it shows the police in the family home, okay? Now, the house itself, very clean, bare, but very, very clean house. And it shows there's a female police officer and they're kind of talking between themselves, and you see his camera and he's looking into the living room, and he comes in through the kitchen by the looks of it. I believe the back door had been left open. You see him going up the stairs, obviously on his camera, you see him going up the stairs, and as he gets to the top of the stairs, okay, you can see a room ahead of him, you can see a room to the left, and then just coming into the camera view is a room on the right, and you can just see the corner of what would be a bunk bed, and the footage stops, okay? And the reason the footage stops is because on that bunk bed, on the bottom bunk, under a blanket, is Sara Shariff, who's 10 years old, and she's deceased. He had killed his daughter and just left her on the bottom bunk of the bed in the family home. Oh, God. Basically, she'd been murdered the day before, on the 8th of August, 2023. All right? Now, there was a note put on little Sarah, just basically saying I'd done this. I was disciplining her, basically. It was legal discipline. On the left-hand side of this note, it's, I love you, Sarah. Sickening. Absolutely sickening. He also wrote on there how he was scared for himself because of what he's done to his daughter. Okay. So, police find out anyway that Irfan Irfan, sorry, Banash, and also there's another man who'd been living in the home. Now, this other man's called Faisal Malik, okay? And he'd come to the UK in December of 2022, okay? About 8 months previous. Now, Faisal is actually Irfan's brother, okay? And he'd come to the UK and he actually was studying. Okay, he actually was studying. He was going to school and studying, etc. I say school, university, right, or college. Okay, so they find out that Irfan Banash and also Faisal Malik, along with 5 kids, have left the UK for Pakistan. Okay, now I'll let you know about the 5 kids in a second. But they're seen leaving the house on a camera from across the road. They're seen going through a car park to Heathrow, and they get on a plane and they go to Pakistan. Okay. So remember, he said I was in my brother's car. Okay, he was lying the whole time. All right. Now, Sara, this child was bruised, beaten and broken. This poor child. And I'm going to bring you back now, okay? After Sara and her brother moved in with Irfan and Banesh, okay, the couple went on in January 2016 to have twin girls, okay? Then a little boy in December of 2018. And then another son in July of 2022. So when I said there was 5 children with them when they went to Pakistan, it was that Irfan and Banash had gone on to have 4 of their own children. And then don't forget Sara's brother, Olga's son, you. Okay, so that's the 5 children I'm referring to that they took to Pakistan with them. Okay, now, the twin girls that were born in January of 2016, it was said that they were premature and they did have some issues. They had severe autism. It said they were quite hard work, these 2 little girls. The little boy born in December of 2018, again, had health problems. So Banash had her hands full, let's say, okay? And then income Irfan's children with an ex, and it's you and Sara. Banash wasn't too keen. Wasn't too keen on these kids, but she certainly wasn't keen on Sara. She wasn't keen on having this little girl in her house at all. Okay. So in that house, there would have been, at that time, 2 adults and 6 kids, okay, in a 3-bed house, and it was a small house. It was quite a small house. They had been living in a flat, and at this point, they'd moved to this 3-bed house, but still a very small house for 8 people. And then when Faisal moved in, that's 3 adults, 6 kids, that's 9 people in a 3-bed house. It was way too much. But there's a reason I mentioned the size of the house, okay? You'll know why in a second, right? Now, Irfan was still working as a taxi driver and Banash stayed at home, all right? Looking after all these children, all right? Now, Irfan, he began to abuse Sara literally as soon as he gained full custody of her in 2019. It was said the abuse went all the way back to when she first was under his complete control. Okay? He would beat this child constantly. Constantly, this little girl. It's just heartbreaking. It also, as I've mentioned in many stories, the exercise punishments, he'd make her stand against a wall, he'd make her do sit-ups, hundreds of sit-ups. This would have started when she was 6.5, these punishments. Just, oh my God. And then sometimes he'd go in and he'd wake her up in the middle of the night to give her instructions or to beat her if she wasn't quick enough to do what she was being told in the middle of the night. Now, there's a video of when the youngest little baby, the little boy who was born in July of 2022, it was said Sara absolutely doted on this little fella. And there's a video of her trying to play with him while he sat on her fan's lap. And it said that he's just slapping her away. I mean, it's so sad. It's just so sad. A lot of kids don't really have any interest in babies, and she did, and it said she doted on this baby, the youngest little boy, and yeah, he just batted her away, just dismissed that, well, slapped her away. Now we get to June of 2022, they decide to homeschool. Oh, there it is. There it is. You must have known it was coming. They decide to homeschool Sara. It's not that they wanted to homeschool her at all. It's that she was so bruised, they were concerned that the social services and the authorities were going to be on their back again. And Banash, obviously, she's got 4 kids of her own. She doesn't class you and Sara as her kids, but she has got 4 kids of her own, and she will do anything to make sure that they're not removed from her care. Anything. So they withdraw Sara from school because they don't want the teachers, who are already very suspicious. They're seeing marks on Sara. They're not happy with what's going on at home. So yeah, they remove her to homeschooler, okay? But in September of 2022, oh, and let me just say, there's no proof that she was ever homeschooled, okay? September of 2022, she returns to school, but she's wearing a hijab, which, if you don't know what that is, it's a full covering with the face. Look, you can still see your face, but it's a total head and neck covering. It said that she would wear covering from top to bottom, so shoulders down, arms covered, legs covered, obviously, so she's fully covered, bar a little face. And the school were quite rightly suspicious of this because none of her fans, female relatives, wear hijabs. Banash didn't wear a hijab. No one related to that family, female, wore a hijab. But Sara is made to wear one. And the school are very concerned. And then there's an episode where they can see bruises under the hijab. But they couldn't request that she remove it so they could see. They couldn't request it. Now, I've seen pictures of her in the hijab, and there's one where she's front facing, and her face looks so her whole head looks swollen to me, because in another photo, Sara's very, very small. She's a small little girl. She's very small for her age, and her face looks swollen in that picture. She's smiling. Every picture she's got this smile on her face. She's a very happy little girl. The school said she was very outgoing. She loved her friends. She loved to sing. She loved to perform. She'd run up to a teacher and she'd say she'd want to put on a show with one of her friends. Very outgoing. They said she was quite feisty. If she believed in something, she'd speak up. She wasn't a timid, meek little girl. She was quite outspoken. She was, from what I've heard about Sara, she sounds like an absolutely amazing little girl who would have gone far by the sounds of it. But yeah, they didn't and they couldn't ask her to remove the hijab so they could see what was going on with her. We get to know the staff at the school did report the bruises, but to social services. There was a very quick investigation done, but nothing happened. We get to April 2023. She's removed again for homeschooling. Moved again for homeschooling. Okay. Now, little Sara, like I say, she was being tortured at home. So when I just says to you, this little girl was so chatty and she wanted to perform and she wanted to sing, and that it's a testament to her, because that wasn't what was going on at home. The girl was being tortured at home. Now there is a video, and that it's one that's used quite a lot in the news and stuff, where she's there and she's playing a guitar and she's singing, and I think, could be wrong, I think the song she's singing is Since You've Been Gone. Not the Kelly Clarkson, I believe it is. It's the Since You've Been Gone, Since You've Been Gone. Oh, no, I can't sing it, I'm terrible. But I think that's what she's playing and what she's singing, and it's just the cutest thing. Oh, it really is, and she's such a pretty little thing. She genuinely is, and to know what she was going through. I mean, it's said that even not long before she died, she was dancing in front. There was a video of her dancing in front of the TV, but it was said that her mobility was quite bad at that point. But she was still trying to dance, and she smiled at the camera. It's just horrific, okay? So Banash herself, she did nothing to help. But she texted her sisters. She texted her sisters a lot, basically saying, he's really hurt at this time. She'd send photos of the bruises on Sara. She wouldn't do anything. She'd just tell her sisters, oh, you know, he's going really far. I think he's going to kill her. She wouldn't do anything, though. There was no other kids in the house being beaten. It was just her. It was said that this could have been for two reasons. First one was, Banash herself wouldn't have protected her anyway because she wasn't her biological child. And also, it didn't include her older brother, who, although wasn't Banash's biological child that she had with Irfan, he was a boy. So it was said that this was twofold why she was scapegoated within this family. She was a skivvy for the family, the judge says. That's the wording, skivvy for the family. She'd have to babysit all the kids, particularly the youngest baby. She was cleaning, she was cooking, she was basically the Cinderella of the house. Banash would call her a demon. She'd say she had a demon in her. She had a demon in her, apparently. And this was when she was talking to her sister, these text messages I was talking to you about. Now, like I said, that hijab was just to cover the bruises, and she didn't wear it at home. It was only at school, so it's proof that it was just to cover the bruises. Now, there was also something else they would make her wear. It wasn't a hijab. It was called a hood. Now, I heard this quite a bit while researching this story, the hood. And when it's discussed in these reports, I didn't know what it meant. What do you mean hood? I don't quite understand it. Let me tell you, the hood is a plastic bag that was put over her head and wrapped around her neck with duct tape or rope, and then just a hole put in it so she could breathe. And she was put through that on many, many occasions. Oh, this poor child. She was screamed at and belittled and just constantly, constantly. She was tied up with rope and tape by her ankles. It said that she had burns on her ankles from possibly they were on the inside of her ankles, so it's possibly while her ankles were tied, she was tied to a hot pipe, so possibly a radiator, and she was tied there by her ankles, or it was boiling hot water poured on her ankles. Of course, Banash used to put makeup on her to cover her bruises. Now, Banash herself, you might be like, well, if she didn't take part in it, well, not at first she didn't, apparently. Not at first she didn't take part in it, but just because she didn't take part in it at the beginning, she certainly made sure it happened. Because when Irfan would be at work and she'd consider that Sara wasn't doing as she was told, or maybe she wasn't moving quick enough, she'd phone Arfan. She'd phone him, Banashwood, and tell him to come home, knowing full well what would happen to Sara when he got back. So, no, she might not have been physically beating Sara at that point, but she was certainly ensuring that she was going to get hurt. Now, Faisal, like I say, he'd moved in 8 months previous. He's Ifan's brother. Now, there's nothing to say he was ever involved in the abuse, but he was also there. And the reason I mentioned how small this house was is because I'm saying it because you couldn't pretend that you didn't know that this was going on. Her screams alone would have been heard throughout that house. The neighbours certainly heard them. They made reports to social services because of the screams they could hear from Sara and the shouting of Banash and Irfan when they were screaming at her. Oh, God. So Faisal, the brother, was very much aware of what was going on. And so were the poor kids. So were those kids. But it was said that her older brother by this point, Sara's older brother, he was by his dad being encouraged to also treat Sara quite badly, which is a real shame. Because you would imagine after everything they went through, it would have been kind of them against the world at this point because of everything they went through. And it goes to show the manipulation at play, that they could turn her brother, who'd been through everything with her, against her. She was left with no one. She had no one in that house to turn to. The only person she had was the little brother, the baby, that she absolutely adored, it was said. Now, Sara at this point is now vomiting and she's soiling herself. Fear. She can't control it anymore. The beatings have took place. Much like Victoria Climbier, she'd lost the power to control her bladder and her bowels, and she was vomiting a lot as well, obviously through fear and the beatings that she was given herself. Now, rather than realising how much damage was being done to this girl, they just put her in pull-ups. She was 10 at this point, and they put her in pull-ups. But they wouldn't allow her to even try and go and clean herself up. They'd make her sit in it. They'd make her sit in this mess for hours. And when she would soil herself, she'd get beaten for it as well. She'd get beaten for that as well. She got beaten for everything. And as she was getting worse, her treatment was getting worse, much like, as I said, Victoria Climbier. Now, in June of 23, there's a video of a family barbecue. And Sari's seen in this family video. She's not wearing the hijab, which I keep saying that because it's proving that it wasn't for religious or cultural purposes. It was to cover her bruises. And because she didn't have it on the video, there were bruises that could be quite clearly seen on this little girl. So we get to her autopsy. Okay. What the pathologist said is the injuries themselves, the cause of death was the injuries cumulatively, oh God, that's terrible, caused her death. Okay. So she had 71 separate injuries. Okay. Now, when I say 71, they were the fresh injuries. They were from the last few days, maybe a week. 71. The older injuries weren't even included in that number. She had older injuries, but they weren't included because these were so bad. She'd been beaten about her head, her face, her chest, her abdomen, her arms, her legs. Okay. She had tramline markings from a metal pole and a cricket bat that was used on her. The metal pole was actually it'd been broken off a high chair. And they were two of the favourite objects that Irfan loved to use. She had 25 fractures. Okay, she had fractures to her collarbone, her shoulder blades, her ribs, her humerus. She had 11 fractures to her spinal column. And she had fractures in the bones in her hands. Now, all I can assume is that he's trying to protect herself. He broke her hands trying to protect herself. He broke her back, her shoulders, her collarbone. He broke this girl. A hyoid bone. She had a hyoid bone fracture, and it's in the neck. Okay. And that was from regular strangulation. She was being strangled on a regular basis that had fractured this bone in her neck. She also had a brain injury. It said that she'd been hit over the head with a mobile phone, but I think that was quite a flippant excuse. It's obviously something harder. She had bite marks on her. She had 5 adult bite marks on her arm. And she had 1 adult bite mark on the inside of her thigh. Okay. Now, what I'll say about these bite marks, when Irfan and Faisal, his brother's teeth, moulds were taken of their teeth, they didn't match. They even took a mould from her older brother, didn't match. It's only one other person those bite marks came from. And it's the same person who refused to take that test. And that was Banash. So the stepmom, who might have seen what was going on but was scared. You're scared, but you're going to phone him up to come back from work to beat his daughter. Or you're going to scream and shout at her yourself. But now we know that she was the one who inflicted those bite marks on this little girl. One on the inside of her thigh. Oh, she had open burn wounds. Okay. I'm still not done. She had open burn wounds from an iron. 2 open burn wounds from an iron on her behind. She'd been pinned down. It's been said that it's been proven that it would need at least 2 of them to do it. So she'd been pinned down while one held her down. The other one burned her buttocks twice, so each side, with an iron, and left open wounds that were never treated. And this was said it was done anywhere from 2 weeks to 6 weeks before she died. I can't even imagine. I can't imagine. I just can't. The burns on her ankles. Do you remember I said that she was in the... do you remember I said she was in pull-ups? Okay. So they would leave her in the pull-ups, and they were saying that there was, where the burns of her ankles were, urine was also present in those burns. And it was said it must have been the way she was tied up, that her feet were close to her buttocks. So she was basically, she was tied up like, oh God, I know there's a word for being tied up that way. I know they tied prisoners up that way. And so that's how the urine and feces had got into the wounds in her ankles. Hog-tied. Thank you. Hog-tied. Well, she must have been in absolute agony. Absolute agony. It says that she would have been tied up for the last few weeks of her life. She was tied up constantly for the last few weeks of her life. Plus hooded. Do you remember I described hooded to you? Now, on the 8th of August 2023, which would have been little Sarah's last day, she was so weak. She was really, really weak. She was floppy. And Banash phoned Irfan and brought him home from work. And when he walked in and saw that Banash was holding this girl, it shows how little she was, how tiny she was. She was also being starved. Let's not forget that she wasn't being fed. My goodness. You know, would they have to do that, don't they? Every story I do, they have to also stop the child eating. And Banash was holding her, and she was floppy. And when Irfan walked in and saw this, no, said she was faking. She was faking it. And so then he began to beat her with that metal pole I mentioned that was belonged to the high chair, that had been broken off the high chair. And he began to beat her with that pole in her stomach. And then she died. And not an hour after this child died, they were on the phone. Well, Banash was on the phone, and you can hear the phone call as she's booking flights for the family to Pakistan. And the person on the phone actually says there's a flight the next day, the day after, and she's like, no, I need it sooner than that. Or the next night, sorry. She goes, no, I need it sooner than that. And they managed to get it for the next morning. Then now I've heard the judge say they're not sure if this happened, but I've got I've got to say I do think it did. No, I don't know. The judge has even said he doesn't know. But when the police were there and they were looking around the house and they found the cricket bat and the pole that had been thrown out into an outhouse after Sarah died, and they were trying to pack up because they're leaving to go to Pakistan, they say there's a pressure washer out there. Now, Sarah would have been in a real bad way, a really, really bad way. They also found in a bin her leggings with a pull-up wrapped round the leg of the leggings, a dirty pull-up. So what they did was stripped her off. And we don't know, but it's believed that she was cleaned with a pressure washer to clean her before they redressed her and put her in that bunk bed. And then they packed up. Obviously, Irfan, not before he writes the note that he places on Sarah, and they leave. And then when they get to Pakistan, like I say, they make the call to the police. And they say, he says, I know I'm guilty, I know what I did, but it was a legal punishment that I gave. It was legal discipline that I gave her. On the 13th of September 2023, Banash, Irfan and Faisal returned after their family made them come back. Now, what happened was there's no extradition, if I pronounced that right, treaty between the UK and Pakistan, okay? But the Pakistani authorities, after hearing this, they started looking for the three of them, and obviously went round to Faisal and Irfan's dad, the grandfather, and now the 5 kids were with him. The 5 kids were there. Who is Olga's son with Irfan, and then the 4 other children that he's got with Banash, they were with Irfan's father, and it's said that they returned back to the UK, the 3 of them did, not because of guilt, not because they were scared of the authorities after them. It was because their family put pressure on them to come back and face the music, because their family were being hounded by the authorities, and that's why they come back. Now, they did do this ridiculous kind of video where Banash basically calls it an incident, but they will come back and they will talk to the police. But they had no intention of it. They were still on the run at the time. And there's footage of them when they do come back into the UK and the police get on the plane to bring them off, obviously to handcuff them, to bring them off the plane. And you just see her look up and she goes, I believe you're looking for us. And it's, when they're brought into the police station for questioning, all 3, no comment, no comment, no comment, no comment. Just absolute, oh God. Now, the 3 of them did come back, but the children, as I've said, do remain in Pakistan. Right up until the last I've looked, I haven't heard that they're back. Obviously, Olga, that's her son. She wants him home. But those kids remain in Pakistan. Banash even says, I've been parted from my kids. You left them there. You brought them there. The twin girls who are said, had quite severe autism, they were getting a lot of help in the UK. They're not getting that anymore. So, right. Now, Irfan himself, he blamed Banash right up until the trial, right up until he was in the dock. And then under cross-examination, I believe, he changed his mind and he's like, all right, actually, it was me. It was me. I did do it. But I didn't mean to. I just hit her a bit too hard, that's all. He felt entitled to do this. He thought it was okay. He thought it was okay to beat his kids and his little daughter, who was tiny. The judge absolutely destroyed them. Now, the judge didn't go into details about child services and the authorities in that way. He said it wasn't, obviously, it would need to, as we know, the inquiry has to happen. So he didn't really comment on that. But what he did comment on was the homeschooling aspect, because we hear about this a lot in any stories like this. And he did say something has to be done with regards to monitoring children when they're removed from school to be homeschooled. He did actually say that during the trial. Now, they were sentenced this week, 16th of December 2024. Irfan obviously was found guilty, given life, with a minimum of 40 years. Banash, she was given life with a minimum of 33 years. And Faisal was given 16 years, and he has to serve 3/4 of that. I believe the rest is on licence. Obviously, if he messes up, he has to come back to finish the rest of his time. I don't know. I don't know. Olga herself, it said, is, of course, it's affected her mental health horrifically, it said. But she did get to bring Sarah home to Poland to bury her, which was of little comfort. I can't imagine her. Now, like I say, when we go back to the beginning of this story, with regards to child Z, Olga's child, when he brought up about him being burnt, and then we've got Sarah obviously saying that, that she'd pulled her hair and she was trying to drown her. I don't know, but we know that Sara was burnt. So was Zed burnt by Irfan? Because we know it couldn't have been by Olga. Well, we don't know it couldn't have been by Olga, but he burnt Sarah. So would it have been him who burnt Zed? And then what Sara had said about her mum, trying to drown her, hitting her, pulling her hair, pinching her, burning her. You said that she tried to burn her with a lighter. Now, it's said that she said this to Irfan and he reported it to the authorities. I don't know if any of that's true about this woman, and if it's not true, what a shame. What an utter shame. So, I don't know. I don't know if that's true. I've said it throughout the story. I genuinely don't know. Too much ties in to what happened to Sara when Olga wasn't around for it to have been her. But just as Banash stuck around and watched it happen to Sara, had Olga watched this abuse happen to her older son, Zed, there was a reason he wasn't returned. And maybe the authorities thought, oh, well, Sara and you are actually both of their children. Maybe they'll be safe. So I don't know. But yeah, that was not again, yes, again, the harrowing Sara Shariff story. Oh, God. It just keeps happening, doesn't it? It just keeps happening. But thank you so much for joining me. I really appreciate it. Thank you so much for joining me. I'll be back on the 7th of January at 8 p.m. Tuesday. Obviously, I'm here Tuesday and Thursday at 8 p.m. I'm off for the next fortnight. I'll be back on the 7th of January. So thank you so much for joining me. I really do appreciate it. And yeah, if you'd like to like, comment, subscribe, I'd really appreciate it as well. But yeah, thank you so much. Thank you. And happy Christmas and happy New Year. Thank you.